السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. مساء الخير جميعا. أهلا بكم في برنامج نيوكاسل مع وليد، الموسم السادس. بإذن الله اليوم معنا ضيف كبير من مدينة نيوكاسل، الصحفي المعروف ومن أشهر صحفي مدينة نيوكاسل وإنجلترا، الصحفي لي ريدر، رئيس صحيفة الكرونيكل، الصحيفة الرياضية الأولى في نيوكاسل. موسم جديد، راح نبدأ بعد إجازة، يعني خلينا نقول إجازة طويلة. فضلنا طبعا بعد اليورو، يعني وقت اليورو يعني نتفرغ شوي للبطولة، وكنا نتمنى طبعا منتخب انجلترا يفوز في البطولة، ولكن قدر الله ما شاء فعل، وإن شاء الله يعوضونها الأسود الثلاثة إن شاء الله البطولة القادمة. نرحبوا معي مع الصحفي لي ريدر، راح نجاوب كل أسئلتكم وكل آخر الأخبار اللي تخص نادي نيوكاسل يونايتد. Ladies and gentlemen, lads and lasses, we would like to welcome Lee Ryder himself. Hello, Mr. Lee.
How are you doing? Are you okay?
It's such an honor to have you on the show for the third time in Newcastle with Al Walid. This is season 6 starting, or first show of the season. We are excited about the coming season, and we have a lot of a question for you, sir, and we are lost really. So we need someone from the tune, someone have a lot of experience, a lot of let's say exclusives. So hopefully we will have a quite chat tonight.
Okay, fire away, my friend.
All right. So طبعا راح نحاول نترجم يعني اهم الاخبار، خصوصا الاسئله اللي راح تسالونها ان شاء الله المستر لي، وراح يعني ممكن نسوي برضو قراءه في منصه اكس، وايضا ممكن حلقه ثانيه يكون في حسب طبعا الاخبار اللي بيعطينها مستر لي ان شاء الله، والاسئله موجوده عندكم في الشات، واللي برضو سال في تويتر راح نسال. All right, sir. We will start with I have most of my question from X platform and also from our group WhatsApp or our group community for Newcastle. Let's start. Of course, there is easy question and hard question, but I'm sure there is nothing hard on you. We'll start on the transfers. The Euro finish, unfortunately, England didn't make it. Hopefully next time. But still, Mr. Lee, still until now, we haven't heard much of a transfer. All is hush hush, as you this word always heard in Newcastle. We would like to start. Let's start with Wilson. Before season starts, we all love Wilson, of course, but the injury history for the player, he got always injured before the season, after the season, mid of the season. So what's latest? And because I'm asking this because it was says that he will be transferred to Saudi league, but recently we hear Eddie Howe admire him, wanting to stay. So what's going on with Wilson and Leeds?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, he's picked up a fresh injury, which is not good for him or for Newcastle, and this means that it delays any potential move for him. He was subject of an inquiry from West Ham during the month of June, when the PSR situation was a big thing for Newcastle and they were considering all sales. Unfortunately for him, it didn't. That didn't happen, and since then he's picked up an injury. So the teams from the Saudi Pro League must wait. Looks like West Ham may have, drifted away in terms of interest. So at the minute, it's a tough situation for him because he's such a great goal scorer, but unfortunately, he's struggling to be fit for pre-season, which is really important. So at the moment, everything seems to be on hold with Callum Wilson.
So, sir, is he gonna the problem of Wilson of staying? He want to recontract, improve his contract?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got 1 year left on his contract at Newcastle. I find it hard, if I'm being honest, that they offer him another one, given where he is in his career, and with the injury situation, I would find it hard to see them putting down a 1 or 2 year extension on the table. I can't see that. I think they're looking further ahead now. They're looking further in the future. Yes, he's a very good goal scorer, but if Newcastle could possibly pick up a fee for him before the window shuts on August the 30th, let's say he does get back fit, and a bid comes in those last few days of the window, then I think he would seriously consider it.
So do you think, sir, last question, Wilson, do you think he will be the second striker, or we will have maybe third striker? So what number of strikers is Wilson?
Yeah, I think if things hadn't have changed with the sporting director coming in, then I think he might have been second striker. I now think that they might be having a look around for another striker, which means if they bring someone in, then there's a good chance he could be sold. And then you would look at Anthony Gordon as a possible third option as a centre forward. But it remains to be seen, really, because there's a lot of, I'm sure we're going to come on to it, but I think there's a lot of political things that need to be played out first. I think Eddie Howe needs to get settled with the new sporting director, and then I think there'll be more clarity on certain things. But look, if a good offer comes in for Callum Wilson, regardless of many of them factors, I do think Newcastle will consider it.
Longstaff situation.
Yeah, that was in a report yesterday that Newcastle would be open to sell a homegrown player. You know, they would get pure profit for him if they did that. Sean Longstaff's a player who won't want to leave Newcastle. He's a Geordie boy. You know, he's a player who's come through the ranks, and I think really for him, that would be the last option that he would want to leave the club. He's going to find it tough to get into that midfield with Joe Linton, Bruno, Sandro Tonali, Joe Willock. There's a lot of competition there. But look, he's won every battle that he's got into at Newcastle. Ever since he come onto the scene, he got into the squad. Every time there's been a question asked, he's answered it. I know he's had some ups and downs, but every player's going to have ups and downs. So for me, he would be a player worth keeping around. I really think that. I think last season was one of his best seasons in the Premier League. I think he got 6 or 7 goals and a few assists as well. He was really fired up. And I think this season will be the same for him. If he gets the opportunity to stay, then I think he'll be battling for that place.
Trippier.
Kieran Trippier, well, we've spoken about this ourselves, haven't we? We know that the Saudi Pro League clubs are looking for him. Galatasaray was one of the clubs linked today. That's another new link. We had Bayern Munich earlier in the year. That was a story that I broke in January. And it was a really interesting one. And I think now for Kieran Trippier, he might look back now and think that going to Bayern Munich in January would have been a good move for him, because he would then be going into a new season with Harry Kane, Eric Dyer, playing in the Champions League, a chance of silverware, huge club Bayern Munich, as we know. I think that might be a move that, he might look back on and think that probably would have been a good one for me at the time. Newcastle wouldn't sell, but I do believe they probably would sell him now. So if that could be rekindled, that move, possibly. But the Saudi Pro League is there. You've got Galatasaray in there. It does feel like this is going to be an opportunity for him to get another big move.
Almiron.
Yeah, Miggy. Again, a player Newcastle seem to be prepared to sell. He's a player that I personally like. I think he's a lovely guy. I think he's a player that gives everything when he's on the pitch. Sometimes it doesn't always come off for him. Sometimes things look like they've gone really badly for him on the pitch. There was a couple of misses he had last season where it wasn't looking good for him. Maybe the pressure was on him a little bit because there's other players who could arguably walking the team ahead of him. But again, I think if they got a good cash offer, they would probably take it. Does he want to leave? I don't think he does. But if there was a big move for him, that was an opportunity, then yeah, he could well leave Newcastle United in the next couple of weeks.
So, Mr. Lee, as I understand, for the player we showed earlier, Wilson, Trippier, Longstaff, Almiron, there is a possibility of staying as well, not just they must to leave.
Yeah, it feels like with some of them that's 50-50. And I do think Newcastle are going to make a couple more signings. I really do, regardless of what happens. But for 2 or 3 players to come in, then maybe 1 or 2 are going to have to go out as well. So I think that it's a possibility that we do see a popular player sold. That could be Trippier, could be Almiron. Certainly Wilson seems to be a player that is getting linked with a lot of clubs. Sean Longstaff, I'm not sure. I think if you asked Eddie Howe, then he wouldn't want to sell Sean Longstaff. So I think there's a lot of work that can be done in, 5 weeks? 5 weeks now till the window shuts. Feels like there's so much can happen in that time. And I think that it's going to be an interesting time.
Is it? Do you think the player will depart first before the signing, or we could play, or maybe the opposite? We'll sign, then we'll sell.
I don't think it's necessarily we have to sell to buy. I don't think that's the case. I think there's enough time to do the business, whether it is bring a player in and then later someone leaves. I don't think that it's nailed on that we have to do it that way. But what I would take from that is if Newcastle do sell a couple of players, let's say in the next 10 days, then I don't think it's time to panic. I think if that happens, then it's a real indication that other players will come in. I think by the time Newcastle start the Stella Cup, then I think we're going to have a much better idea where the club is in the transfer window. I think there'll be things that could happen between now and Japan, which is not far away now, a few days. I think there's going to be a lot of business and a lot of to and fro. But I think by the time the Stella Cup comes around, then I think we'll have a good understanding of what this summer's going to look like.
And again, I believe next game is against Urawa Reds from Japan. And do you think the result will affect, or put the pressure on the fan if we lose or we did perform a bad game?
Is this the Hull City game on Saturday? Because they've got to play Hull City on Saturday in a friendly. So, and then they go to Japan. I don't think pre-season results are anything to worry about if you lose pre-season games. If there's ever a time to lose a game, it's in pre-season.
Hull City, is it closed behind closed doors?
They are. I believe they're playing Burnley behind closed doors in a practice game. Then on Saturday they have a public game against Hull, which has got 4,500 Newcastle fans going down to Hull. So I think they'll enjoy that one. And then obviously there'll be a lot of fans flying over to Japan for the games in Tokyo, which I think a lot of people are going to get the experience to see 2 brilliant stadiums. So yeah, but results for me in pre-season, I don't think you can read too much into them, but you can certainly get a temperature of how the team is going to go in the opening weeks of the season, and hopefully it's going to be a good one.
Sir, how truth is Malik Thiaw, the defender, the German defender from Milan, I believe. Malik Thiaw. Di Marzio.
Yeah, Newcastle have an interest in this player. I think the agency is similar to some of the players Newcastle have already got on board. So this player is someone they like. I think they've had some initial contact. I did try to speak to the agency. While they didn't give me too much information, they didn't deny this player was a target of Newcastle. So I think you can safely say that this is a target, a player that Newcastle would like to sign. Possibility of someone else going in the other direction, possibly a swap deal. Kieran Trippier has been linked with that. We know AC Milan are under pressure to bring players in. Kieran Trippier would probably be deemed as a very good sign of AC Milan. So there's a lot of possibilities, swap deals, cash deals. A lot could happen. But look, Newcastle definitely have an interest in this player.
Any new name you heard about incoming deals for Newcastle rather than Malik Diaw?
Yeah, well, I think, without giving, too much away, because obviously I need to keep that in my notepad. There is a lot of new names have come to the table now because Paul Mitchell has arrived. He has his own ideas, his own targets, his own contacts. So he will have a full range of players. He will be ready to say to Eddie Howe, what about this guy? What about this guy? So there's a chance you might see something that no journalist even gets. Could be something that comes from absolutely nowhere. And I think he's got the pedigree, Paul Mitchell, of signing some top players. You look at the list of players he signed at the clubs he's been at, and it's been unbelievable. So hopefully we're going to get a surprise maybe, and a player that Eddie Howe can hopefully work with as well.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. We're going to into a hot topic. Didn't get cold yet, still hot. We're going to talk about, it's really complicated. It's many question in one aspect or one question. Now, Mr. Mirdad Gudusi and Mrs. Amanda Stively leave. At the same time, Paul Mitchell, the new director, came to Newcastle. We would like to ask you before talk about this. We want to know why, in your thinking, why they left, and what is the reason. Of course, the club didn't give much details on why they're leaving. In the Newcastle website, official website, there was a comment from Mr. Yasser Al Rumayyan, chairman of Newcastle, said Amanda and Mirdad will forever have our tremendous thanks and well wishes as they move on to focus on their other business. So the reason is from Mr. Yasser Rumayyan statement is to focus on their business interest. And also Darren Ellis, the CEO of Newcastle, I play this short video. He didn't give a reason. Let's play this video first.
Our fans and the club will always be thankful to Amanda and Mirdad, and I'm excited to see their forces of nature, as everyone knows, and exciting to see what they do next in terms of business opportunities.
You mentioned earlier about Paul Mitchell coming in.
So also Mr. Darren Ellis says he thanked them as well, similar to Mr. Yasser Rumayyan, and he said, I am excited to know what they were going to do later. So no much story into this.
Yeah, I think from where my point of view, I mean, as you say, the club didn't release too much detail as to why, but we got a few hints that the club was moving in another direction. They seemed to, suddenly we had a sporting director back, we have a performance director, we have Brad Miller there, the CCO, we've already got Peter Silverstone there, we've got Darren Eales there. That's a handful of people already there that are in the boardroom, and to have 7 or 8 directors at any football club is a lot. You look at Newcastle structure now, and they paid a lot of salary to get these people in, and now they have to get on with their jobs, and they have to make Newcastle into a success story. Why they left, I think they probably felt that they've done their job with Newcastle. They got the takeover done, which is the big one. They stabilised the club. They got Eddie Howe into the club. They got Paul Mitchell into the club. So they all performed to a certain level, and they did a great job. And I think from me and many of the other fans, it's thanks very much. And hopefully see you again, and they get a welcome at the stadium at some point. If they're ever back, I think that would be a really nice gesture, that they get an opportunity to take in that appreciation from the supporters. I personally was disappointed to see them go, because I thought that their relationship with the supporters was very good. You obviously met them in person when you went to Brighton, and they gave you that incredible gesture when you were looking for a ticket, and then suddenly you were sat next to them in the director's box, which was an incredible story, which we covered on Chronicle Live.
Yes, you helped that somehow.
Yeah, we can't forget that. It was a beautiful story. So, yeah, it's sad to see them go, but hopefully the new people who've come in now can take the club onto a different level.
In Newcastle, most of the journalists and football analysts, media, say something. Why it's now? Because the PSR. That's the conclusion. They are just to speculate. It's the PSR. It was the problem there. But when I heard many podcasts and journalists out of Newcastle, from UK, from London, Manchester, I heard some says, or they speculate that the BIF made them to leave. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think that I've heard that one as well. But again, we've had nothing. We haven't had anything concrete on that. We haven't had a statement on that. And the fact that you have them saying goodbye and good wishes, then I think that kind of draws in a line. Part of me thinks it just came to a natural conclusion, a natural cycle. I always wondered how long they would be at the club after the takeover. I wasn't fully expecting them to be here as long as they've been. So I knew that day would come eventually, because they got the deal done, which was the deal. I don't think they were going to be here for 10, 20 years. I don't think that was ever going to be the case. So I think we expected them one day that they would be announcing that they were going. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see now what their next move is. It could be something very interesting.
Do you think later maybe Amanda and Merdad will explain something why they're leaving? Because they just thank the fans and the board, and that's it.
Yeah, possibly. I think Amanda Staveley has done a lot of interviews on big forums we've seen, and she has been quite candid about a lot of things. So it wouldn't surprise me if she gave a bit more detail on why she left. But personally, I think without putting words into her mouth, I personally think she may well say, well, we didn't want to hang around too long when there was so many new board members, and I've heard the expression "too many cooks spoil the broth," so that sort of stuff. So maybe it was just the right time to go, and everyone was comfortable with it.
Although the timing was seemed not planned, the timing of leaving.
I think what we got was, there was a little hint earlier in the year, wasn't there, when some documents from Company's House emerged, and then obviously things. I think Amanda Staveley denied that she was going to leave at that point, and then I think things happened quite quickly in the summer. You had Dan Ashworth going to Man United, compensation. You had Paul Mitchell coming in. You had James Bunt's coming in, and then they left. So it was quite a number of things happened in a short space
So
of time.
maybe they were waiting Paul Mitchell to come before they leave.
Possibly, I think that was one of their last acts as directors. Possibly, I know they were in Monaco. I know they were at the Monaco Grand Prix when Paul Mitchell was there. So they've definitely had some conversations at some point. Put a good word in, possibly. We'll never know every single tiny little detail, unfortunately, as much as we'd like to. We just never will know every detail. But hopefully, the future is looking good now for Newcastle.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, for elaborating that, because I believe as well. I think they just speculate other media out of Newcastle, because I can't see that anyone being forced to move. I didn't believe that, but I just want to ask what's going on or what's being said around. I have many questions from the chat, live chat, and some from Twitter. I will try to we will try to answer it very quickly, Mr. Lee, so do we not take much of your time. Muhammad asked, why did Dan Ashworth really leave Newcastle, in your opinion?
I personally think that his head was turned by Manchester United. His friend, Sir Dave Brailsford, was at Man United, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, of course. I think that he fancied the move to Man United. He never played it down. He was almost flirting with Man United, if that's the right word. I think that he never recovered from the Sandro Tonali transfer. I think he took that one very personally because it was on his watch. I don't think he got that one right. So I think the minute that an opportunity came to go to Manchester United, his head was turned, and he was never going to stay in Newcastle. And even after the Tonali deal, it never seemed the same behind the scenes. The relationship seemed a bit broken. So it was not too good for him, and I wasn't surprised when he eventually told them that he wanted to go to Man United.
Some of the journalists and the fans speaking that maybe Eddie Howe can't really, or he didn't used to deal with director manager. So now we have Paul Mitchell, and he speak. We all see the statements in the interview, long interview on Newcastle website, and he speaks a lot of things that he will provide and give Newcastle, and will be responsible for. A few hours later, Eddie Howe came with the BBC and many media talking about the statement that if he's happy, we'll continue. So what do you think about this situation?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, because I think Dan Ashworth and Paul Mitchell are two very different people, two very different sporting directors. I think Paul Mitchell is going to be very hands-on. I think Dan Ashworth was happy to almost sit back, and I mean, that picture there, I don't see Paul Mitchell pulling the drinks.
Exactly. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, I can't see that happening. We haven't seen a picture like that either. Yeah, have we? Of Mitchell and Howe together. So
yes.
That's. I'm not saying there's anything in that, but we haven't seen that yet. So we might see. I mean, we have seen them talking together, but I think that was a picture that was taken from a distance. I don't think there was anything set up. So I don't know. That might just be me reading into it. I might not be the only one who's recognised that. I think the relationship, any relationship, nobody likes change, really. And I think any relationship takes time to work and takes time to gel. So, look, what we do know is that Eddie Howe's a top-class head coach, and Paul Mitchell's a top-class sporting director. So their minds must meet at some point, hopefully. And if they do, then there could be no stopping Newcastle United. So let's hope that there's trust between the two, and trust can lead to success.
When you said change, nobody likes change, right? But do you think Eddie Howe didn't know that Merdad and Amanda will leave this quickly? He seemed like he did just brand new information for him when it's happened. Maybe a day earlier. What do you think?
Well, what I can say is that when I went to Australia at the end of the season, I did an interview with Eddie Howe, and I asked him what type of a summer was it going to be? Was it going to be a major overhaul at Newcastle? And he said no. So maybe he wasn't expecting this to happen. I mean, he must have been expecting a new sporting director to come in, because ultimately Dan Ashworth was always going. But then I also heard that maybe they could have continued with Steve Nixon in a different role, Andy Howe supporting him, and then they would be in charge of recruitment. Instead, now there's a totally different dynamic. It's completely different. It does feel like an overhaul. You've lost Minter, you've lost Anderson, you could lose Trippier, you could lose Wilson, you could lose Almiron. So there's 5 players, 3 or 4 players coming in already, 2 or 3 more coming in. That feels more like an overhaul to me. So maybe he wasn't fully expecting it, but as any head coach will tell you, it's about results. So it's all about results, really. It doesn't matter about what happens off the pitch. You need to be winning, and you need to be in the higher end of the table. Newcastle need to be better than last season. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. And then obviously we've got the England situation going on as well. I have to wait and see what happens there, just like everyone else does. The deadline to apply for the England job is August the 2nd. I would then say they'll draw up a shortlist in the week after it. So it actually coincides with the start of the season. And then they may ask for permission to speak to Eddie Howe. We'll have to wait and see. But if they do ask for permission, then is he going to say, no, I don't want to speak to the English FA? I personally can't see that. But again, for him, he's got a dream job at Newcastle. The England job will be big. But ultimately, whatever happens, Newcastle have to move forward. Doesn't matter who's in charge. They've got to move up the table this season.
I would like to ask you about this picture. Of course, sir, you're covering a lot of Premier League teams as well. You're familiar with. Have you seen a situation like this or picture like this of a new director and his assistant to watch a game like supervision way, or this is just normal and we are overthinking stuff?
I haven't seen too many pictures like that, I have to be honest. That might have just been because it was the first day, but I did also see another picture on another video in Germany where James Bunce was very close to the training. But I believe that he is going to be taking a hands-on role. So that's something maybe we need to get used to. He's already said it, that it's his job to build up an unbelievable relationship with the manager. So I think it's something new at Newcastle United. We can definitely say that without getting into any trouble, I think. I don't think Joe Kinnear, when he was director of football, I don't think he was standing on the side of the pitch at that close. I don't think Dennis Wise did so when he was there. And obviously we've seen Ashworth, but he was in that picture that you showed, he was very much trying to demonstrate, look, I'm just here to support. I'm bringing the drinks on for the players. But that picture you showed there looked quite intense. So, but maybe that's what's needed at Newcastle, because they had 42 injuries last season. That can't happen again. There's already players starting this season injured. So we need to have answers why players are getting hurt so easily and so frequently. And maybe they need to take a good look at that.
What's the latest? Any date or when FA will decide the new manager? So we'll get with Eddie Howe rumors and stuff.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, so August 2nd is the deadline for the applications. Then I think the next week after that they'll come up with a shortlist, and I think after that they'll make a decision quite quickly. Probably, if they get the right man for the job, then I think it'll be in time for when England play next, which is against the Republic of Ireland in the UEFA Nations League. And if they can't come to a decision, then I think we'll know that Lee Carsley, the under-21 coach, they'll just put him in interim charge, and he'll take charge of that game against Ireland. So it's going to be interesting. If Eddie Howe applies for the job and wants the job, then I think the FA they'll fancy him. They'll want him in. But there's other candidates.
Prefer Graham Potter or Eddie Howe, the England, do you think?
Who? The FA?
Yeah, they will prepare someone like ready, like Graham Potter, or someone like Eddie Howe with Newcastle.
Well, that's them looking at it. I think that their preferred candidate is Eddie Howe because he ticks every box. He's exactly the type of manager who can take England on to the next level, work with a very good set of players, and also potentially push for the next World Cup as well. Not just UEFA Nations League, World Cup as well. So,
are they gonna interview Eddie Howe, the FA, the candidate? They will interview them before.
If they'd have to get permission from Newcastle first. So Newcastle would have to say, yes, you can talk to him, or no, there's absolutely no possibility we're going to let you talk to our head coach. If that's the case, then Eddie Howe pretty much has to make a decision and I mean, I can't see, I think it would be extraordinary if he resigned from his position. I don't think that would happen. But if they ask for permission is granted, then it's almost half done. So it's a very tricky situation. England and Newcastle and Eddie Howe, they need to get through these next few weeks, and we need clarity on it either way.
Years and years, we dreamed of Moussa Diaby to come to Newcastle, and we fight with Aston Villa for him. And here they announced today, I believe, Moussa Diaby to Al Ittihad. So, Mr. Lee, what do you think of this deal? And what's been saying about the Saudi League in England lately from sport and journalist level?
Well, yeah, that was a player that Newcastle were keen on signing, but the fee was very high. It's a strange one because obviously Aston Villa have just signed Onana, and now Diaby goes. And he's very good for Aston Villa. So I think he's looked at that as an opportunity to play in a different league, new challenge. He's seen that there's some top names gone over there. He's seen that it's an opportunity to impress, and the league itself, there's a lot of top players gone there. So it's a bit like back in the day, there was a lot of players would go over to Italy or Spain because they wanted a new challenge. So this league, we don't see a lot of highlights in the UK from this league. So we only see like little bits and pieces. So it's hard to judge it. But obviously it's a league that's growing. We know there's exciting things happening in the Middle East, and this league could be part of that in the future.
Moussa Diaby did great in first season, and he was happy to be with I forget the coach of Aston Villa. He like his tactical, as he state before, once the signing happened by Aston Villa and they are going to Champions League, he have chance to play Champions League. For me, this is unexpected move from one season in Premier League. And what do you think happened with Aston Villa? Are they just wanting the money, or they just didn't? Because we notice he's in the bench some games as well. And some people say it's because Deschamps staying in France, so his dream of going to France national team disappears.
Yeah, I think that we've got to look at the PSR situation on this one.
But VCR done finished VCR. This is now after.
But they're going into a new cycle now. This is a new cycle, and Aston Villa will know that they don't want to be in any danger of this problem. Next June the 30th, they don't want to be in any bad situation. I think the fact that they spend 50 million on one day and then got 50 million in the next day says that they're trying to keep everything nice and balanced. So it looks like it's been an opportunity for him personally, and it looks like it's been an opportunity for Aston Villa to make some money. So it's a really interesting one. Probably a surprise, yes, but ultimately the way the transfer market's been this year, probably it's in keeping with some of the surprise things that we've seen. I think that's the best way of putting it.
How many years left in Eddie Howe contracts?
My estimation is that he's probably got about 5 years left. So I think when he signed in 2022, I think it was a multi-year deal. We know that it's been triggered again, but I would say probably 5 or 6 years to go on this deal, which means a lot of compensation for anybody who wants to try and take him from Newcastle now. So it's a long-term deal, but we've seen long-term deals end earlier at Newcastle. Alan Pardew signed a very long one, didn't he? A long time ago, and that didn't get to the end of 8 years, sadly.
طبعا احنا جاوبنا على كل هذه الأسئلة في نقاش مع لي ريدر يعني قبل ما نحطها. Mr. regarding, do you know the salary? Somebody asked me about the salary of Lloyd Kelly per week.
Yeah, well, I think that Newcastle have got a ceiling on the wages, and the top earners are probably on about, someone like Bruno will probably be on about 130, 140,000 a week. I don't think Lloyd Kelly will go ahead of him, but I think he'd be on a better deal than he was at Bournemouth. Hard to say, but potentially 80 or 90,000 pound a week would probably be about right, because he's not going to come for less money, and he's probably turned down a lot of other offers as well. So that will be quite an expensive one for Newcastle.
Last 3 questions, I promise, Mr. Lee. Dubravka, is he leaving somewhere? Because we have 5 goalkeepers. So situation quickly, please, on goalkeepers. Yeah,
well, they've signed 2 new ones, as you know. The Mark Gillespie's pretty much the day-to-day training goalkeeper, so I don't think he's going to go anywhere. So Dubravka will go. It's just where he goes. I've got lots of different bits of guidance on him. I've heard him even linked with Saudi Pro League, potentially going to Saudi Pro League if a club will take him there. Clubs in Italy, clubs in Spain. Obviously, he's not going to Celtic now, which seemed to be a possibility at one point. But ultimately, if there's a Premier League club that wants him, then he could well go and try his luck there. So there's definitely opportunities to go places, but I definitely don't see him staying in Newcastle.
The on and off topic, the stadium, is it going to be rebuilt or renew? What do you think will happen with latest on the stadium?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously I've watched Newcastle in a long time, and I've watched that stadium go from being, pretty much a concrete bowl where there was no seats behind it, either goal. It went up to 36,000 eventually. Then we got up to 52,000. It's hard to see it getting any bigger because we know the situation with the listed buildings behind the East Stand. You can't really do. It feels like you can't do much more at the Gallagher end because there's a metro going underneath it, and the other stands are extremely high up. So safety would be an issue. I genuinely find it hard to see how they can squeeze any more seats in there. There's obviously an opportunity to build a new stadium. I'm not saying that will happen. I'm saying that as an option or an opportunity that one day they might put it to the fans to vote on this. I don't know. I can't see many fans wanting it. But if they want a bigger stadium, then maybe they will have to move.
Last question, Mr. Lee. Weatherman Agency, we discover that Newcastle bringing many signing lately from the agency, and we understand this is kind of contract or official agency for Newcastle. So does that mean we're gonna hear them more a lot, or we will have players from this agency in this transfer window?
Well, obviously, one of Weserman's biggest clients is Eddie Howe.
Yes,
that's also his agency. So it's no surprise that he's getting a list of players put his way from them. So
is that to control the fees or just a coincidence?
I mean, I don't think it's about controlling fees, but he's going to have the pick of the clients on that list. It's because it's closer to home. Lewis Hall's another player who's with that agency. So there's a chance that if Eddie Howe gets things his way, then you might see a couple more clients come along. There's always been a Newcastle one agency that's kind of had a bit of a monopoly on player signings. But Paul Mitchell, again, we need to learn more. Which agencies is Paul Mitchell close to?
But why to bring them from this agency? What's the catch?
I don't think there's a catch. I just think it's just convenient that Eddie Howe can go to somebody at the agency that he's at and see what's available, and perhaps get to a player first because he's got that kind of inside knowledge through that agency. So it's not always that easy, but he's definitely got an opportunity to see information that others maybe can't and get in there quicker. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
At the end, thank you, Mr. Lee. It was such an honor. Thank you, and we appreciate your great time with us.
Thanks for having me.
طبعا كان معنا صحفي لي ريدر، تكلمنا عن كثير من الأسئلة. طبعا معذرون على الترجمة، يعني صعبة، هناخذ وقت طويل يعني من وقت الصحفي لي ريدر انه نترجم كذا، راح تاخذ الحلقة ساعتين، لكن ان شاء الله راح نسوي ملخص وراح نترجم اهم الأخبار على طبعا منصة اكس. شكرا لكم للمتابعة وتصبحون على خير.